Hey, good morning, everyone. And we have some new students. Nice to see you all. This will be the beginning of another 10 weeks course named Theological Studies, a rational quest on Christian faith. This might be quite a little complex and difficult class for those who are not a believer, and but you'll get to know what you may expect in a Christian college like this one. I assume many of you guys are international students, and some of you, I assume, are not a Christian and never been to church, maybe. But in this class, I'll try to introduce what the theology is. But since this is a college level, I'll try to make it a little simple and easy as possible. So welcome, come on in. The class format we'll start at 10 a.m. exact, and then we'll have 15 minutes class, and then you'll have 10 minutes break in between, and then another 15 minutes. So we'll be finishing before noon, and I expect you to attend, please. Attend until the end of the class, because I'm going to take attendance at the closing of the class, not in between. So you need to remain until the end of the class to sign up for your attendance, which is important for international students, because the government is very careful about your attendance. So please make sure that you make all 10 class attendance. And before I go any further, since I have most of you are new students, so think I need to introduce myself briefly. Okay. So let me go ahead and put, okay. Instructor, myself. Uh, you can call me a teacher, instructor, or professor, whichever you prefer. It's okay. And this is how I write my name in English, Korean, and in Chinese characters. In Chinese characters, my name means first one, Hwang, in Korean pronunciation, it means yellow. Yellow is I understand it's the color of the emperor, and then Song, the second character, that means holy or holiness, and the Su, the last third character, it means excellency. This is a name my grandfather gave me, who happens to be an elder in a Christian church. So he expected me to be a good Christian. Uh, so that's my name. And I was born in Korea, and I spent a few years in Central African Republic, which is right in the center of Africa. I spent days of my high school there and graduated in high school, which is ran by missionaries, American missionaries, to be more exact, Baptist missionaries. That's where I learned to hear and speak English. And then I came back to Korea to study in the university, which one of the top university in Korea, Yonsei University. Then I came to US in 1993. So it's been more than 30 years in America. And I also, as a Christian, worked with some, this is a campus ministry or the Christian group on a campus. I'm sure if you have studied in colleges, there are those clubs or circle, the campus groups, and that's one of them. Anyway, credential that would be important for you as a student, because if you have a teacher or instructor, you want to know whether he or she is qualified to teach you the subject. And as you can see, I did a BA in English at Yonsei University, and then did a master in Fuller Seminary, then also did the Master of Divinity, which is needed to become a pastor or ordained pastor, which is in Golden Gate Theological Seminary, which used to be in San Francisco, but then I moved back to here in the LA County now. Then also studied the leadership in Fuller Seminary. Then finished my PhD in William Carey International University, which is in Pasadena here, California. So that sort of qualifies me to teach these various Christian subjects in this college, Lordland College. And yeah, that will be. No, okay. Currently, I also work as a hospice chaplain. Hospice chaplain does the help with the spiritual issues that ones who are enrolled in hospice. Hospice is a program which helps one who has 6 months or less to live. So that's a process of dying, and then as a chaplain, you help out those who are going through that difficult stage in his or her final days. Okay, now, spirituality. Let me ask this. How many of you call yourself or identify yourself as a Christian? Those who are attending church. No, no. Catholic and Catholic? Yeah, one Catholic. And any Buddhist? Buddhist? No. Okay, I have no religion at all. No religion. Okay. So this will be something new for those who never had contact with the Christian faith or Christian belief. But I'll try to explain for those who are Catholics. And biblical, it means abide by the Bible. Even if you are not a Christian, probably you have read Bibles, if not all, some of it. And because that's Bible is it's a global book, and the most printed and most sold book in a Guinness record. So probably you had a chance to read it. The Bible teaches many things, because God wants to communicate with the people. That's what the Bible is. And then I'm a Baptist, and for the matter, I was ordained as a Baptist pastor. And then also, yeah, I'm a born-again Christian. I identify myself as a diaspora. Diaspora is basically an immigrant. So I've been living in here in this country for 30 some years. So now I am a diaspora. Okay. That will conclude my introduction of myself. And let me go on and so this is an introduction to the class that we are going to study together for 10 weeks, 20 hours total. Some of the requirement that I'm gonna tell you, and this is important because that will affect and influence your status as a I-20 visa student. So I want you to look at it carefully and try to follow these instructions. The title of this class is called Theological Studies. Basically, it is a study about Christian faith, or how the scholars of this Christianity study its subject. And there's a subtitle, A Rational Quest on Christian Faith. Basically, a belief or a faith is something that is not visible. Many think it's a spiritual, so they rather not consider it to be rational, meaning you use your knowledge or your intellect to study these issues in religion. But theology, it deals with the Christian religion or faith, and try to make it systematic and organized. So that's what we are going to learn. You may not be interested at all, and you just take this class because it fits your schedule. Whatever the reason that you come to study and sit in this class, I want you to learn something. I don't expect you to become Christian or anything like that, but at least have some information and knowledge about Christian belief when you may have a chance to talk about it. And basically, if you're staying and studying in America, you know this country has been begun or started as a Christian nation, because those immigrants from England, those Christians first came to the States on East Coast, and they are the ones who begin to build this country. And many things still in America and this USA are based on Christian belief, even though half of the population now, or 60% of population, are not Christian, and they have no faith at all. So the course description, this is what this course is about. This is what we're gonna do. Students, you guys will explore or study the goals and conceptual tools of systematic, biblical, historical, and philosophical theology. That's basically saying in theology, these are the major fields. Students are also, second point, are also expected to learn basic theological concepts and to engage in critical reflection about those concepts. So even if you're not a Christian, I'll try to explain what Christian believes in a very rather systematic and organized way. So you'll have some idea about what Christianity is about. Okay, now course objective. These are some of the objectives that we want to try to meet. First one, to introduce basic vocabulary or terms in the field of theology. So theological terms will be discussed in this class. Number two, to become acquainted or familiar with important theological topics and questions. So when you're studying something, whether it's a medicine, whether it's a sociology or ideology, economy, whatever you study, all these studies, the academic studies, begins with question or questions. So in the same matter, the theology or study of this things about God and Christian belief, it does bring us with some questions to ask. So we want to know what are the questions that we try to answer and understand. Point number 3, to develop a critical thinking skills on these topics and questions. So I don't want you to just listen to me and believe everything that I tell you, but I want you to be in a more like a neutral position and try to see if what the Christians believe would be true or not, whether it's relevant or not, whether it makes sense or not. So that's going to be your job as I present these statements and lessons. Okay. Point number 4, to implicate theological resources and skills, including scripture, tradition, and reason. What it is basically saying is I'm trying to help you to use all these materials, whether it's a book or some other information, in trying to understand the topics. 5, to acquire a proper methodology for theological inquiry in their ministry context. Number 5 may not be relevant to most of you, so just forget about it. Main text. This would be the text that you may use if you are serious about these lessons. But basically, you can use the workbook, which will come next week, I believe, and just follow the topics in the workbook. That will be probably better for you guys. But for your information, this will be the the book that you want to read. There are other resources just for your information. Now, requirements. This is where you need to focus. Attendance is the key to passing this class. In any American colleges or university, they require at least 60 points to pass the class. This is not a pass-fail class, but I give you the grade. But if you want to pass, just attend these 10 classes every week. Do not miss any of them. Again, second point, we do not consider online attendance as valid for I-20 students anymore. It used to be valid during the period of coronavirus. but now you need to be sitting in the class in person, face to face. So each class will if you sign up the attendance sheet, there will be 6 points, and the 10 class, you'll get automatically 60 points, which is enough to pass this class. Topical study report. I'm going to require 2 reports that will be at least about 5 pages long. And reports on one of the topics that we are going to discuss. So it will be a theological discussion, and I'm those who, most of you are the English is not your first language, just like myself. I understand when I when I went to Africa and was in this English, American missionary school, it was, just a blah, blah, blah. Then it took me quite a while to be able to understand, do the things that school required me to do. So I understand the situation, and there are many tools that you can use. These days, just a couple years ago, you didn't have something called AI, chat GPT, whatever. I do not recommend, but if you have to, you can use those tools to do this assignment. I allow it because you are foreign international students, and I understand the difficulty. But the thing is, write these reports, which will count you 40 points together. So each 5-page paper, it's not term paper, it's just a report. Term paper will be more than 10, 12 pages long, and it has a certain rules. But the report is what you read or what you understand, just write about it, but with some critical points included. So that's going to be something that I expect you to do. And it should be written in letter size, and it should be printed and size 10 the font, and also double space. And this is a very basic requirement for any college level report. Actually, in America, if you're junior high school, they require you to write in this format. Anyway, so 2 of these and the 40 points. First paper report is due on the end of class number 5. So week 1, this is class number 1, week 1. But at the end of week number 5, I want you to submit your 5-page long report on any of theological topics that you will see in your workbook. Grading. It's a scaled grade, and anyone who gets between 91 and 100 will get an A, and B, C, D, and so on. And 60 points and below. If you get less than 60 points, you're not gonna pass this class, which means you either take this class again or some other class instead. Okay, that's the syllabus. If you have any further question, then in the workbook, the syllabus is in there. You can refer to it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now we are going into actual subject, and any questions regarding the syllabus attendance? If you have any questions, you can ask me later on and in between the class during the break. Now, this class lesson, the part one, it has 3 parts. We'll try to finish at least part 2. If we are not able to complete the whole part 3, that part 3 is something like an extra. So part 1 and part 2, we'll try to cover it. And part 1 is an introduction. This is 2 lessons. We have 2 lessons in part 1. And introduction to theological study. Basically, I try to explain and help you to understand what theological study is about, which is probably very new to many of you, but bear with me. I'll try to help make it easy as possible. And let's begin. The lesson 1. Definition and the meanings. In any academic pursuit or academic quest, if you're in school, again, and if you're studying a certain subject, first thing to do is to try to understand and define it. So definition is very important in any other class work that you are going to do. If we are really planning to continue to study in America, probably you want to learn how to study in America, which would be somewhat different or sometimes quite different from the way that us Asians been educated. That takes a while. I mean, the subject itself, most Asian students do well in contents, but to be able to understand the American way of education or the college level education, that would be a little different. So we'll begin by defining a few things regarding theological study. Okay. Fundamental questions. These are some questions that we are to address or to tackle or to study. And so I want you to know and remember this. Number 1, why study theology? Number 2, what to study? And number 3, how to study. Mainly what we are going to do in this 10 weeks class would be the second question. What do the theology deals with? What are topics? What are the subjects? So how to study, that would be probably another class. I mean, we're not going to deal with the third question. So why study theology? Okay, this might not be relevant for most of you, since majority of you are not a believer, you're not Christian. So if you're not Christian, just for the reason of academic quest, as a very objective person. So you're kind of looking at Christianity and kind of asking, what is it? What do they believe? That would be the attitude, and that's okay. And I'll try to help you on that. And if you have no interest and you're just sitting because it is required, Well, that won't be fun at all because the theology itself is a very dry kind of class. I've taught many different classes here. This sort be the most no fun class I ever gonna teach. So it's not gonna be fun. Very it's theoretical. It has a very logical things. So it's dry. But those who like to discuss theories and logics, they're rational, and it will be fun for you. I'm kind of person who like to discuss this theoretical, logical discussion, dialogue, or debate. If you like that, that will interest you. So why study theology? If you're a Christian, let's say, if you're a Christian, theology is one of the basic things that you kind of distance yourself from your faith, your belief, and look at it and objectively and say, this is what I am believing or what I am taught to believe. So that will be the kind of attitude that you are going to have as a Christian. So try to be very objective as much as possible if you're a Christian. And at the same time, you know and understand what you are believing in very systematic and organized way. So that helps you to be a better Christian. Whether you're Catholic or Protestant, doesn't matter. It's going to help you to understand your own faith. So I'll try to help you with that. So these are the fundamentals. Now, theology may not be the vocabulary and the word that you are used, even if you're in certain level of English speaking understanding student, yet theology is something probably new if you're not Christian. And this is where the word came from. The Greek word theos, meaning God. And then also Greek word logia, meaning a sort of study or logic. So it becomes in Latin word theologia, and then Frenchy theologie, and then it comes into English and became theology. So theolo, logic plus God. So God, logical way of understanding who God is and what God is about and how you believe in God. That will be the thing. So theology basically is a very logical study or approach about God and faith. So from the word origin, that you'll understand the meaning and definition. So that's why we go into the original word when we do these things. It's the same in any other field of study. So here's like a dictionary definition, and let me try to theological study refer to a comprehensive, meaning it includes all as much as possible, comprehensive. Another word, inclusive. Then systematic, meaning there is a certain system. So you have a very systematic way of trying to understand it, organized. And also academic quest. Basically, when you are doing academic quest, you're going to ask a question and you try to give all the valid proof or evidences to support your answer. Then you come with an answer at the end. So you ask a question, then research about the question, and you're going to get an answer. So that's basically that's the academic process. So if you're student, if you're to study in a college level and beyond, university or master's or PhD, that will be the basic understanding of what we do. So you ask a relevant and valid question and try to get a reliable sources to support the possible answers, and then you have the answer, which usually in academic field we call findings, whether it's in physiology, chemistry, or liberal arts. Findings is a common word for the answer. So you are going to ask a question and try to come out with the findings that would be valid and that will be reliable and that will be relevant. So these are three measures that you need to have when you're doing any academic pursuit. Again, these two things, validity and reliability, is a basic requirement also for the engineering or science field, natural science. And relevancy has to do with the most liberal arts. If you're studying liberal arts, whether it's sociology or literature, then you come up with relevancy. So these are the three measurements for any academic pursuit if you're trying to do it. Now, with that, on the relevant topics to the understanding of Christian belief and practice. This will give you the basic categories of any, theology. If you're studying theology or doing theological studies, or even sociology, that's the same thing, the belief and practice. But since this is a religion, study of religion, when you're studying religion, belief takes the most part. Then there comes a practice, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Muslim, it doesn't matter, any religion or religious belief has the belief and then follows a practice. The belief without practice, most religion regarded as not true religion, true faith. So when you're doing a theology, not only the belief, but practice is also considered as a part of main study. Okay, good. Now, so the theology and theological studies would be pretty much the synonym, meaning it means pretty much the same thing. So when we say theological studies or theology, that would be the same thing in this class list. So I would say theology instead of theological studies, which is longer to make it easier. When I say theology, it means theological studies. Okay, so understood. Then, so theology in any seminary or Christian college like this one, when you are in and come in and sit down to do a study in theology, there will be an academic discipline as much as any other science study or social studies are academic discipline. So we are trying to do it in a very academic way as much as possible, because this is a college level class, and I we understand that we are doing an academic discipline. Okay. When you see this, theology is a science. Let me define. Science, most people, when they hear the word science, in Korean we say 과학, and there's a Chinese character will be the same thing. It means they associate with the natural science. Natural science is a study of the things that are tangible and visible, like physics, chemistry, biology. These are natural science. But the science, the word itself would include any other category of science means any sort of logical, rational, systematic, academic study of a subject or topic. In that sense, theology, sociology, liberal arts are science. Meaning that the word science, it means knowing, right? In Latin, it means to know or knowing. So knowledge. It is about the knowledge. So theology is a science. One requirement for any science has to be systematic and organized, and it has to prove itself with the validity and reliability. So those elements are the basic core elements to constitute any science. So science, to be a science, it has to be systematic, organized, and then all rational, valid, and reliable. So that's what the theology is. It's not like you're thinking or imagining the stories and trying to make it sounds good. That's not science. The theology is not that. If you have studied any the world history or global history, which I believe you did, and if you study the study of Western world, then you'll be surprised to see. Actually, if you compare the Eastern world to the Western world, this very academic pursuit or the science itself, not natural science, but scholastic study of the things and subject and the philosophy and ideas and religion, the Eastern world is much advanced. Actually, it is true. So the Western world, they had their first academic pursuit because of the Christianity. And of course, they had like philosophers like Socrates and other famous philosophers, but that's limited to the philosophy. I wouldn't say it's an academic pursuit. Anyway, so the beginning of theology is the beginning of any academic pursuit in a Western world, especially in Europe. Now, relevance to other fields. The reason that I say that is because out of a theology, all other academic fields or academic discipline has been developed. So what I mean is even natural science came out of primary theological studies that is done in monastery. So monastery in Europe is probably the first organized systematic educational institution ever existed in the European or Western world history. So by developing theology and the way of studying an academic discipline, then eventually it branched into all these other fields of science today. So theology, again, this is not what I say. Most historians do agree the theology of Christian faith or the very systematic study of scripture, the Bible, and the religious belief became later on to the other fields in the European or Western world academic discipline. Okay, two major fields in theology. Again, as we had looked at the definition just a few minutes ago, there are two main areas in theology. One is about belief, and the other one is practice. The belief and practice are two main fields that we are going to study. And but in this class, due to the nature of the title of the class, and for the reason that most of the students here are not Christians, so we'll probably focus on more of this doctrine or doctrinal belief. Doctrine is a belief of Christian or Christian faith. So practice, I may talk about it a little bit, but we'll mainly focus on the Christian belief. So again, whether you're Christian or not, if you're a Muslim, this ought to be ought to have more relevance. But even if you're a Buddhist or you have no religion, still, this is a very interesting subject to study. Most colleges, secular colleges, would not teach you this. And this probably your only chance in your life to learn about what Christians believe. Okay, let's take a 10 minutes. Okay, let's continue with our second part of week number 1. So I told you there are two major fields in theology as a whole. And the belief part and practice part. Belief is what you believe as a believer of Christianity, then if you believe something, that belief has to do, it has to be expressed, has to have certain result or consequence or actions that is called practice. So belief dominates your action. It's not only it applies to a religion, but in any your daily existence as a person. Your actions, your decisions always comes out of your belief. So what you believe dominates or controls your action. That's how it should be. So if you are a religious person and if you claim to be a believer of any religion, but you do not live according to what you're supposed to believe, then you're not true believer. So that's the same for Christians, and we call that hypocrites. So learning about Christian belief would help you not to be a hypocrite. Some Christians do not know what he or she believes. And by studying theology, even if you're not a student of theology or a seminary, yet having to learn about this Christian belief would help you to know who you are as a Christian. Whether you're Protestant or Catholic, it doesn't matter. If you're a Christian, we believe in almost the same thing, except a few minor details. The main belief would be the same: God, Christ, Holy Spirit, the heaven, salvation. These things are common topics between Catholic and Protestant. Both are called Christian. So by learning this doctrine or Christian belief, that you'll become a better Christian, better believer. Now, the lesson that we are going to study during this class is like a mapping. So I help you to understand what are the things that you need to know if you are a student of theology, or not even a student of theology. As a Christian, there are certain things that you need to know according to certain categories. So I'm helping you to understand what are the categories of the study of theology. So if you're studying theology, these are the topics, main things that you are going to study. That's how I'm going to present the class. And second point, macro understanding and overview. Macro versus micro. If you're learning anything as a student, and even as a person, there's what we call perception. Perception is how you look at the things, whether it's a person, whether it's a culture, whether it's a society, whether things, you have perception, you see them. And then as you see them, you perceive, and your brain and your mind and your thoughts gonna tell you, oh, this is what it is. So there are two basic perceptions as a student or academic person. One is macro and one is micro. Easier way to explain this perception is macro perspective or view is looking at the whole mountain or whole forest. And micro perspective will be looking at each tree and plant and those grass and so on. So there are two different perspectives. In this class, we are trying to do like a macro, looking at whole mountain of theology. So that's how we are going to approach this topic throughout the 10 weeks class. Third point. So it's like looking at a tree. It has a root and the stem and the branches, or leaves and flowers included. We will see how this theology is structured. Like a tree. Theology is like a tree. It has many different branches. And I'm going to help you to see these different branches and how they are related to the main stem of theology. Again, next point. It's going to be very systematic and organized approach to the topic of Christian belief. So you can, it's a sort of analyze. So from macro, we are going to go into micro. So look at the whole thing and then go into more details to see what it is like. Then finally, I'll try to help you to integrate the whole thing. So these are going to be connected and related in a very smooth and natural way. So the lesson, the approach would be these elements all together. Now, when and if you are a student of theology, just like I have done, I've did the four different theological studies. Master level, 1 master level, 2 master level, and 2 PhD level studies in theology. You don't have to do that much study, but to be a professor and teacher in a college, at least you have to have a master degree. And the reason that we do the pastors study all these different things is because the field of theology is so big, as a vast. And if you learn just one part of it, you may not have a good understanding of the whole thing. Because belief and faith, I mean, think of the belief. you believe many different things in your life. You have to have a certain belief about your family, and you have to have a certain belief about your country, and then also each country have a different ideology or political system. Then you have to know that, and you have to believe it, and you have a certain belief about regarding the gender things and so on. So the list goes on. So as much as excuse me, life is vast and complex as a big, so is any religion, because a religion deals with the human existence, your life. So our existence as a human being, every domain or area of your life has to do with the belief or religious belief. Because of that, the reason, if you're studying any religion, I mean, theology can be applied to any other religion as well. Buddhism has its own theology, right? The system of belief. And then if you're a Muslim, then you have your own system of theology. So the theology, if you're a religious person, it deals with every domain of your own human existence. Because of that, these categories are it presents the wide variety of the things that we need to deal with when you are studying Christian belief and practice. Number one, systematic theology. That will be the main thing that we are going to cover in this class. So I'm going to introduce the systematic theology, but it's going to be like I introduce what are the questions that are or topics that we deal with when we are studying Christian belief in a very systematic way. Number one, number two, number three, and so on. And then second, biblical theology. Okay, here's the Bible. Okay. The Bible, in any language, whatever, the Catholic Bible is a little different, but pretty much the same. It has two parts, Old Testament and New Testament, two different parts. New Testament is written after Jesus Christ. Old Testament is written before Jesus. So Jesus of Nazareth, the Jew, is in the middle of it. And it has 66 different books for your information. 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 different books in New Testament. In total, 66 books are in here. So 66 small books are included. The biblical theology is the area of academic field that studies the Bible itself. And so that's what the biblical theology is. Then we have historical theology. In historical theology, you study history of church or history of Christian development or Christianity. So it basically, in historical theology, it deals with how Christianity began and expanded or declined and then spread and so on. What are the events, major events in Christian history? And who are the major characters or the people in Christian history? Those are the main subject that when we deal with the historical theology. So it's basically the history of Christian faith or Christianity. Next point, practical theology. I told you that theology deals with the belief and practice. The practical theology, it does deal with how do we practice as a Christian, as a believer. So the practical theology is something that is practical. I mean, how to do rituals and what are communion, how do we do it, and so on. Then philosophical theology. Beyond the doctrinal issues, there are some that philosophical issues regarding in Christianity. And those philosophical issues, including Christian ethics and so on, is included in that. But in this class, probably we may not deal with the historical, practical, philosophical theology in depth, but we'll focus more on the systematic theology and biblical theology. So that will be the main concerns that we are going to study in this particular class. 10 weeks, 20 hours is not enough to cover everything in this category. So we'll try to focus on more important subject and topics for the sake of time and for your learning. Okay. That was lesson 1, and we'll go to the lesson 2 now. Let's see. Okay. This will be let me just give a warning. This will be the most boring part of this class. First of all, I don't like history, and history, these are basically the list of the things that happen or things that we are going to want to remember. But since it's all written, you can look at the book and read it. But for the sake of giving you the background or the context of what the theology is, this will help you to kind of have certain basic foundation in understanding the development of theology. So brief of history of theology is again how theology had developed from the beginning after Christ. Old Testament theology, we are not using the word theology for the Old Testament, so the theology is a New Testament word for us in this class list. How it all began? Probably the most notable person in regards to the kind of systematic way of presenting Christian belief would be the Saint Paul or Apostle Paul. He had written most of the New Testament books other than the Gospel. So there are 4 different Gospels in the New Testament. Gospels are the story of Jesus and his disciples. And so it's basically narratives. Then there's a book called Acts of Apostles. These Acts of Apostles our story about these 12 disciples, not all of them, but the main disciples who, what they did after Christ Jesus was resurrected and ascended, meaning went up to heaven. So once Jesus is gone, these disciples, so-called apostles, begin their own work or own ministry. And Book of Acts, it writes about how they did and what they did and so on. So there are 5 different stories, and then in those stories, for example, in the Book of Acts, the Acts of Apostles, that does talk about Paul, whose name was Saul, and then he later changed his name to Paul. So the Paul is named in the Book of Acts. This guy, the Paul, who had never been with Jesus while he was alive, he is the one who actually wrote majority of New Testament. All the New Testament Bible that are with the names of church, for example, Thessalonian, Colossian, Ephesian, Romans, these are the books, the letters actually, letters written to these churches by whom? Paul. And if you read, for example, if you read the Romans, the book of Romans in the New Testament, as a writing of Paul, for sure, because he names himself, I, the servant of Jesus Christ, Paul. And he names himself in that letter. So we know for sure the Romans were written by Paul. And he writes very systematic way of presenting Christian belief, the gospel. So he would be considered first main theologian, meaning who studied theology. And he's not only the student of theology, initially he was, but later he becomes the teacher of theology. Again, theology is a systematic presentation of Christian belief or the gospel. And that's what he did. So there is no debate about whether Paul is a theologian or not. He is 100% theologian, and he's first prominent theologian to our definition and our understanding. You may add Peter, Saint Peter or Apostle Peter, to the list of first theologian. Peter had written at least 2 letters that include some systematic presentation of Christian belief to the people whom he writes to. So the Paul and Peter are the first prominent theologian. And if you would like to add a third one, number 3, to first theologians, it might be John. Not the John the Baptist. He was martyred or killed early, so he had never had the chance to write. You know that John the Baptist is the cousin of Jesus Christ, Jesus of Nazareth. He died early, but there's a John the disciple. This John, he writes several different what we call epistles, meaning the letters. And in those letters, he does have certain theology that is very clear and then and the solid and very how to say deep. So we would consider John the disciple or Apostle John as one of the first theologians. So the theology, as we know today, had begun by these major apostles. Paul being the one. The reason why Paul was the first good or very prominent theologian was because, as we read in the Bible, he was a disciple of Gamaliel, who is also the very prominent theologian of Old Testament himself. So Paul learned from this very great scholar of Old Testament. It was like a one-on-one individual personal tutoring. So he was tutored by this great the theologian of Old Testament, and so he had very good training in theology or in scripture before, he write all these theological. Actually, it's a textbook, theological textbook for believers. So if you are to study theology as a seminary student and as a very serious Christian, you have to study Romans. And the Romans chapter 1 to 11 ought to be the main theological presentation or best good presentation of theology. In addition to Romans, you may consider the book of Hebrews. We are not certain, even today, we are not certain who had written the book of Hebrews, but most likely it is written by Paul. And if you read the book of Hebrews, it has a different tone than book of Romans. The book of Romans are written for the Church of Rome, where there are many so-called Gentiles, non-Jews, who does not know Old Testament, who has no idea about Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, and Joseph, and so on. But Hebrews, if you read Hebrews, it is written to the Jewish people who had knowledge of Old Testament, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which is again called the law. So if you read the Hebrews, it's again very theological. It's very systematic. It deals with the basic Christian belief and the very basic questions any Christian would consider to ask if he or she to believe a genuine gospel. So by reading Romans and Hebrews, you'll have a very good knowledge of Christian belief. Probably the most, at least 90% of Christian faith is covered in the book of Romans and book of Hebrews. So those are the 2 major theological discussions that we believe Apostle Paul had written. So from that information, we will consider Apostle Paul to be the very first theologian and the prominent theologian other than Jesus himself. Of course, it began with the Jesus of Nazareth himself. He did present very fundamental and genuine theology to the audience. So if you are to go back even further than Paul, then you ought to say Jesus Christ or Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph of Nazareth, would be the theologian, but that's obvious. So that's why I did not, name Jesus as the one who initiated all these theology. Even though in the time of Jesus, they did have very good theology. Judaism, they had their own theology, but some of the teachings that Jesus came and said, that is wrong. That's not what God wants you to believe. That's not how the belief in God should be. So Jesus turned that around and changed everything. Then we have those who are called saints, that I already named, like including John the disciple, and then Peter the disciple, and so on. And also in Catholic tradition, we have the book of Thomas, the Thomas the disciple. So you may include that, even though some of the things Protestant churches would not acknowledge as the genuine or as a canon, yet there's some truth in book of Thomas. So Thomas is John the disciple, Peter's are the saints who had his own ideas. It's not like our own ideas, but the Holy Spirit told them and taught them what to write, as we believe. So these saints, 12 disciples who had written some of the materials in the New Testament, they ought to be considered one of the first theologians of Christianity. But before the Christianity, you could say there's an Old Testament theology which translate or transformed or inherited to Christianity. Without Old Testament, there's no Christianity. So when you're studying Christian theology, Old Testament is not excluded, but it is included. That is important, because some of these churches today are ignoring the importance of Old Testament. They think it's a Jewish thing. That's a thing for Israelites. No, that's not the way that we look at it. So Old Testament theology is 90% of the theology that we study today. So how it all began? It began with the Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, when it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That very statement is the very beginning of the theology. Without that first statement in the Bible, we would not have any theology at all. So that's the background and beginning. Early church fathers, these are some of the major theologians, or the student or teachers of theology after these apostles, 12 apostles had gone. Actually 13, because a Paul was added. And in the place of Judah, Iscariot Judah, who killed himself after selling Jesus to this Jewish authority, they replaced Matthias as another 12th disciple. So they had a 12 already, but Jesus added Paul, St. Paul, to that disciple or apostles. So we have 13 apostles altogether. So the final number of the apostles are 13, not 12. Again, after these 12 disciples are gone and dead, then begin the story of the followers or the disciples of these apostles who study Jesus, Christian faith, and begin to write their own understanding and thoughts regarding Christianity. And they named early church fathers. So we have some of them later on. I'm going to introduce them to you. How it all began, continuing on that subject. Monasteries. The oldest monasteries goes as far as 4th or 5th century, depending on how you view the monastery. Monasteries began with those who are called themselves as saints. These are the people who distance himself. Those are all men, so that's why I use the word himself. Himself from the society, and leave the society and live in a desert or very secluded places, isolated places, and practice the learning and the practicing of Christianity by himself. And these are called saints in that age. And they are the ones who, study Bible and do nothing else, and try to be a very pious person by studying the Bible and practicing Christian belief and praying a lot. So these isolated individuals, they are the ones who begin monastery. Because if there's a one who become famous as so-called isolated saint, and then people, most case, it's a man. People come around him and ask him, let me become a follower. Let me become a disciple. Because that's how Jesus did. And they wanted to follow the example of Jesus. So they come and let me live with you. Let me learn how to pray, how to understand the Bible, and how to practice and become a better believer and Christian. This kind of movement is not only limited to Christianity, but in every other religion is the same. For example, the Buddha, he came out of the palace that he was a prince. Then as he began to become a leader of this kind of belief that he believes in, then disciples come and added and formed a certain group of people. Then it becomes a religion and becomes Buddhism. So when you have this religious practice and system by a so-called soul saint or isolated saint, they began, and then there are going to be disciples and followers who come and add it. By adding the numbers, now they have buildings and then land and a system, and it becomes monasteries. If you're trying to study European history, the monastery becomes the major component in understanding the history of France and the history of Italy or Spain or any of those Mediterranean countries, including Germany. So monastery becomes the major component of Christian religion. And what they do in the monasteries are they get up early and then pray, then they have breakfast, and they begin to work, labor, and then after the many hours of labor in the daytime, once it gets dark, and then they gather and study the Bible in the evening hours. So that was a basic routine they did. So get up early and work. Usually it's farming, basically farming and building. That they need to build their own, place to live and worship. So building, so it's basically physical labor. Then in the evening they gather and study, worship, and so on. That's a monastery life. Because of that, study time in the everyday evening, you accumulate the knowledge of understanding the Bible and Christian faith, and they try to answer these many questions that comes as the result of becoming a Christian. So monastery is the main foundation of theology. So if you're to understand the theology or the study of Christian faith, then you need to go into the tradition of monastery, and it's very closely connected. Then internal need. What I mean by internal need, here's a church. Church is basically a people of God or community of Christians. But at the same time, church means a place that Christians gather together and to practice their worship and then study and have some fellowship and so on. So when we say church, as you see the church elsewhere in California, so you know what the church is. And when you gather, the believers gather together, there's a pastor or priest, depending on which church you belong to. A Catholic, we call priest or fathers, and then in Protestant church, we call them pastors. I'm a pastor, or ordained pastor, and what the pastor does is to teach and lead so-called congregation, the members of church. Now, when you become a pastor, you're doing the teaching. When you're doing the teaching, people begin to come bring their own questions and issues. Some of them are very practical. They ask, how can I pray better? And how can I become a better believer, and so on. It doesn't require that much theology. But when they come up with this question like, why God gave this tree of good and evil in Eden, the Garden of Eden, and make Adam and Eve to eat them, and then later on he sends Jesus, and you will be saved. You will go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus. I don't understand. That's kind of question. So that's a very theological question. And also you can ask, where the evil come from? I mean, we see the death, and we see the sickness, we see this pandemic and the war against each other between Israel and other the Middle Eastern nations, Palestine, Iran. And then you bring this question, why? And then you are to give them proper answers. And that demands good theology. You cannot just say, no, I don't know. Then you're not a good pastor. So that's why we pastors or priests go through this at least 3 years of seminary training, and it's a very intense learning, as much as the medical doctors require at least 6 to 10 years of education before even they can practice. The same thing. I mean, the pastors are dealing with the spiritual issues, which I believe is more serious than a physical sickness. We need to be better trained than medical doctors. So, internal need, meaning people, the believers, they bring the questions, they have questions, they wanted to know, and they wanted to know it better. And so, for that reason, theology is necessary. It is needed. It is a must. And that's why we have theology. External challenges. What I mean by external challenges, these are some of the outside forces, or outside, sometimes enemies, who are attacking the church. It's been there since the beginning of Christianity, as early as in the time of disciples and in the time of Jesus himself. Jesus himself were faced with many theological questions. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll continue next week. But before we go, I want you to sign this. So here on the bigger, please print your name. Hit print with a good spell. Then first you sign your name.